Hi, I'm Rob and I'm here to give you some more tips to help you with your English. These tips, as in all of these videos, are related to the latest episode of Word on the Street. Now hopefully you watched that episode, but if you didn't, don't worry. You can go to the British Council's Learn English website and you can find lots of information about each episode, and you can watch actually some clips from those episodes too. The latest episode was about North Wales, a really beautiful part of the country, and Stephen and Ashley went to an area called Snowdonia and went to the top of Mount Snowdon. And if you're interested in finding out the answer to the question we set about what they find at the top of the mountain, well, you know the answer if you've seen the programme. They found a cafe, which is not what I would expect to find at the top of a mountain normally. A very busy cafe, but I don't know. Maybe that's normal. Maybe it's normal, especially in places which are so popular. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about the places. I'm going to talk about the language. And the first tip is about a phrase that Stephen used. When they arrived at the hotel, he was talking to Ashley about everything that it's possible to do in the area there. And he said, there's loads of stuff to do here. There's loads of stuff to do here. What does that mean? Well, there are two words there which are really important. Firstly, loads, or loads of. Loads of is like lots of. And lots of course, is like many or much. So you can use loads of in the same way you use lots of. It's a little more informal, I think. So it's something that I use in spoken language, definitely. But maybe not so much in written communication and emails or things like that. So, loads of stuff. Stuff is the second thing there. Stuff, what does it mean? It's like things, different things. So, if you want to find out more about stuff like this, you can watch more episodes of Word on the Street. Things like this, stuff like this. And actually, I talk about stuff in this series, so you can find out more that way too. Now, the second tip is also a phrase Stephen used, and that phrase is when he's at the cafe later and he's going to ask a question to the waiter who's working there. Before he asks the question, he says, I was just wondering. I was just wondering. I was just wondering. And then he asks a question. Now, probably you understand now from that introduction from me that we use the expression, I was just wondering, very often to introduce a question. So before you ask a question, could I ask you the time? Or do you know if this is available? Do you know if that is right? I was just wondering is a good way to lead into the question. So I was just wondering if this is available. I was just wondering, could I ask you a question? It's a way to lead in, and I think it's a polite form, so it's a polite way of doing it. Although remember, being polite is also about how you say something and the situation you're in. It's not only about the words. Okay, so I was just wondering, a really useful phrase for you to try and practice. One final thing about that phrase, the pronunciation of the verb wonder. 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 It's not wander or wander, but wonder. Be careful with that. Okay, the third tip is actually something related to learning English. So not the language itself, but learning. And that is simply to record yourself. Very easy to do if you have a phone or a laptop with recording software. Just take your phrases and remember what I said in the last video, that you really shouldn't try to learn too much. It's a lot better to take just a few phrases and try to learn them really well. So not just writing them down, but also recording yourself saying them. Maybe recording yourself a few times. The one thing you do need to do this is a good model. So a person saying that sentence or that phrase or that word. And that could be somebody from Word on the Street. It could be Stephen or Ashley or me. Or it could be somebody else you hear online, or perhaps even a friend who speaks really good English. But find a model and then record yourself and try to imitate or to copy that person 100%, so perfectly, just to sound exactly the same. And play a little bit as well. Maybe try to say it a little bit more quickly or a little more slowly and clearly, and really try and get all the sounds right, all the connections between the words right, to sound like your model. So recording yourself can be really helpful and actually quite fun as well when you return to the recordings to review what you did. It can be useful and fun to hear how you've progressed and just to hear your voice maybe sounding a little bit different perhaps. Now the final tip, the fourth tip in this video is actually just a word, and the word is cozy. Stephen, when he's talking to the waiter at the cafe towards the end of the episode, says that it sounds cozy to stay there on the top of the mountain in winter. And cozy is a word with a really specific meaning. To me, it means something which is comfortable, something which is warm, and probably something which is small. So we often use it to describe maybe a little house, a warm little house on a cold winter's day. That to me is the best example of cozy.